Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. I won't steal a lot of time from you because this is a very exciting and fun episode, the first live recorded episode of the Indie Diaries. There is just one thing that I want to say, which is this episode is probably going live on the same week that Full Void from OutoftheBit is released. So please head over to Steam and support this amazing bunch. Now, without further ado, let's go into the episode and have fun. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. Today, with me, are three lovely team members from OutoftheBit. And actually, they've hosted me live in their office. So this is going to be the first live recorded episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. I don't know when the next one will come out, but I will have to find someone in London, I suppose, that I can connect with. But yeah, so guys, tell me a bit about yourselves, who you are, what you do, and where are you based?
Of course. So hi everyone, we are very excited to do this live with you today. So I'm Ali Motisi, I'm the director and founder of OutoftheBit. It's an indie studio based in Wimbledon in London, and I'm here with Rosalia and Leo.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. So yeah, Rosalia takes care of PR and marketing in the company, and Leo is a pixel artist and animator in the company.
Perfect. So we got so the full team isn't here because the full team is made of how many people?
It's 5 of us at the moment.
5 of you. Perfect.
There is another one joining soon.
Oh, perfect. So you're expanding. That's
yes,
nice.
We're expanding.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, I like to do a little icebreaker at the beginning of these episodes. So this is a question for every one of you. So what's one game you think everyone should play at least once? So one each.
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, if we go retro, I'll answer with 2.
Okay.
2 answers.
All right, yeah, so already we're cheating. All right.
I'm breaking the rules already. One is retro, Monkey Island.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that game, absolutely. Everyone should play that game, it's so good. Even my kids loved it. So,
okay, perfect.
It spans across generations. Another one more modern for me, it's Inside from Playdead.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Inside.
Love Inside, yeah.
That's my answer.
What about you, Rosalia?
It's difficult to come up with one on top of my mind. I can say the one that I actually enjoyed more is not recent, and it's Heavy Rain.
Oh, Heavy Rain, yeah.
I actually loved it, and it was one that I used to play at night, like after dinner, before bedtime. And it was really gripping.
I loved Heavy Rain, yeah. Has a bit of plot holes, but yeah, let's not go there. What about you, Leo?
Well, I grew up playing Minecraft a lot, and it just, I feel like because it's a sandbox game, it gives you so much creative freedom. It kind of fuels you to become a more creative person. Also,
you can see the style. I mean, you're the pixel artist, and Minecraft is very blocky, so maybe that's exactly. That played a role. Yeah, well, a lot of people in this podcast say Outer Wilds, and that has to be my pick as well. I mean, I think I played it recently, and I think Outer Wilds is probably one of the best games I've ever played, period. So if you haven't, I do highly recommend it. So yeah, well, let's move into some more personal questions for you guys. So which games do you remember playing growing up? So you've already answered Heavy Rain, but do you think they had an influence on your work? For example, for you, Ali, I know you're a big Commodore Amiga fan, so you probably have a lot of retro games.
You've done your research, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I do. Yeah, it's really clear. The influence for me is Another World, Prince of Persia, and all the classic. To be fair, from Sensible Software back in the day, Bitmap Brothers as well. Gods, Speedball, all the Mega classics. Mm-hmm. But I also love consoles. I never owned a Mega Drive myself, but I had friends with Mega Drive, so obviously I love Sonic as well. I'm a big fan of games you can just start and play straight away. Having said that, when I was younger, I did enjoy some flight simulators as well.
Oh right, flight simulator.
I had the time to read manuals and all this stuff.
Yes. I think Flight Simulator was one of the first games I ever played. Well, I didn't play it, but I did see my father playing it on our old Mac G5, which we had when I was a kid in the 90s. So yeah, that was really fascinating how realistic it felt back then. Yeah. So now you look at the recent Flight Simulator, it's even more impressive. Yeah, over to you, Rosalia. Apart from Heavy Rain.
Well, no, that was more recent. If we talk about maybe when I was younger, I remember going out of school and going over to friends and playing Sonic.
Oh yeah, okay.
That was a big one at that moment.
All right,
definitely that. Yes.
Okay, Sonic. And what about you?
I'm more of an online kind of competitive player. I mostly played League of Legends since like middle school, and only got into more pixel art indie games around the time I got into uni, so between 2018 to 2020.
Right. What are your favorite of the ones that you played around that time? Like, do you remember? I like Braid, for example, but that's.
I was a big fan of roguelites.
All right.
I played Skull the Hero Slayer and Dead Cells.
Oh, Dead Cells. Okay, yeah. I don't know the first one, but Dead Cells I do. Yeah, it's a fascinating little game. Love it. Okay. When did you guys realize that you wanted to be game developers? Like, was there an aha moment, as in, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to do, or did it just happen over time?
Yeah, for me, when I was 8 years old, I got my BBC Micro compatible. I lived in Italy and it was OutoftheBit PC, but it was basically BBC Micro with all the British games on it. And, it came with a manual at the time. So computers were very, very simple back then. And you wanted to learn to program because you wanted to have more stuff, right? And to create your own things. So actually, just by reading the manual, I kind of got into programming and tinkering, also sometimes tweaking other games, hacking games, and I really, really enjoyed that. And, I thought, I can actually do this for a job. So I was very, very young, and then obviously went to uni, and then when I finished, I could actually start the company at some point. So it took a bit of time, but,
Yeah.
So way back for me, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
For me, it's a bit different. Well, way different. Playing games was something, but I've never thought I would be in the industry myself. I come from a background of sports journalism.
Oh, right, okay.
And that was my thing. Moving to London, I started there a bit, moving into the betting, gaming. And the thing is, I started doing PR and marketing at OutoftheBit like 10, 12 years ago, I think, yeah. And what I wanted to say is the gaming industry has space for everyone. I mean, it's not that like, okay, if you're a programmer, of course.
Of course, yeah, that's the core role, yeah.
But me, I'm totally from somewhere else. But when you see that it's very creative, and now I find myself doing social media, for example, which is something that I would have never said, even last year. But you just find your space and you get into that, and it's fun and it's amazing. Yeah.
Totally agree. As a writer, I can relate. Like, of course, there's space for writers in the games industry. It's a bit harder, maybe, for narrative designers to break through and just get their foot in the door. But it is definitely a place for everybody. So yeah, what about you, Leo?
So for me, I've always been into drawing, and I used to play video games with my friends all the time. And it was around the age of 15 where I decided I want to go in the direction of the game industry. I mean, it was like, a pretty clear path for me of what I wanted to do and where I want to be. And I got lucky that I got to meet Ali in 2020.
It's not just luck, you put yourself out there, you reached out, and we got in touch. It's not luck,
Yeah.
I don't go knocking people's houses.
Right.
Are you interested in the job, right?
Of course, a lot of hard work also for just getting to the level where I can be employable and stuff.
Of course, yeah. Well, there's an interesting question. There's an interesting point that someone made on Twitter just this week, and I was like, actually, they have a very, very, very good point. They said that every podcast about indie games should include this question. So I think I will start asking it to everybody. How did you fund yourself when you actually maybe studied, or what kind of resources did you have entering into the industry? Because not everybody has the same kind of resources, and it may be interesting for people to know how you got into it.
Yeah, if I may start, for me, I always wanted to have my own company, and I tried to do that in Italy. Unfortunately, while I was at uni, at the time in Italy, I don't know about how it is now, but there was a lot of bureaucracy and
I don't think it's very different now.
And the cost of entry just to set up a company and pay for like VAT and taxes and pension and stuff, it was way out of my reach. I could not afford it. I could only afford a laptop. So, I went around asking accountants in Italy, and it was way too expensive. So I didn't do it. I didn't start the company in Italy. And when I moved to London, I was working for other people at the time, but then the iPhone launched. And I thought, that's my opportunity. You only need a laptop, and you can set up a company very easily and cheaply in England. And that's what I did. I started the company, and I started creating games for the iPhone when it came out. So I guess you can say I was in the right place at the right time, because at the time it was very easy to set up a company in England and connect with Apple. At the time you had to print the contract, send it over to US.
Okay.
Very old school, but it was easy to do. While in Italy, that arrived like a year later or so. So in a way, I was in a privileged position to do it. Right time, right place, and had kind of the skills to do games that would work well on the iPhone, and that's how it got started. So being there really helped to have visibility. We were there when the App Store opened on the first week, amongst the first 1,000 games. Okay. And then we started launching more games, so we kind of rode the wave on the App Store and grew together with the market, with the App Store, then Android, and then slowly we had more stuff. We'll get to that later. Sure. So what I'm saying is sometimes you have to take chances and the opportunity. Yeah. Of course, I took risk because I left my job, which was a well-paid job, to start my own company. But in a way, there is a time in life where you have to take chances, right? Because then later it's hard when you got commitments and kids. You can still do it, but obviously it's harder, right?
Yeah, so, totally agree. Yeah. Well, my girlfriend's sister has a company, and you're absolutely right. They pay a ridiculous amount of money in taxes. Like I don't know how much of their revenue actually goes into paying the government's taxes. So it's
hopefully that will change.
Hopefully, yeah. And content creators have the same problem right now, because if you look at streamers or just YouTubers and such, they have to pay so much tax to the government that it's like a lot decide to just go abroad if they earn above a certain amount, because it's just not sustainable. So but what about you guys?
Well, I'm not sure if I can answer the question because I'm employed in the company.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess starting small is key. So don't get too caught up into, I don't know, too many equipment, too many things. If you have your day job, I will keep it.
Just keep it, you never know.
And maybe slowly start with something. I guess if you get original and if you get into that with passion, it's the unique addition to the market that will make you stand out. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I suppose it's a similar answer for you. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's an interesting thing in this room. We're all, I think, I'm not sure about you, Leo, but I think most of us, we were not born in the UK. So I think, were you born in Germany as far as Ali said?
I was born in Rome.
Oh, in Rome. Okay, so in Italy too. So no one here is a native English citizen. So when did you guys move to the UK, and when did you realize it was the right choice for you? Of course, you already answered, so over to you guys.
That was 2005, and I had already a degree in communications. I had already done most of my life journalism, and I was sick and tired of it. So it was time for a change. That was an industry with no money and no prospect, really, at least where I was. It was also difficult being a woman. Sometimes I'm sorry to say it, but it's pretty true.
I can imagine.
Especially because, well, that was true for all the journalism industry, but sports in particular was pretty tough. So after a while, I just said, okay, you know what? It's not my thing. I love it, but in a romantic sense. I used to love writing and following important and big events. But that wasn't the reality of it. It was impossible hours and no money. So, yeah, London was a much better place in every single sense. In terms of, I liked the social structure better, mentality, and opportunities. So with my skills, I just had to learn the language properly. And yeah, well, I started really small because I started with customer assistant in a betting company. But then you quickly have the chance to prove yourself and move up. So in the end, I was operation manager in the company. It was a small company, but we had big projects. And yeah, well, then I had kids in between. So no more jobs for a while. Yeah. And then it was OutoftheBit, which was a big opportunity because, again, I started small, but I gained experience and we do all sorts now, right?
Yeah, I can relate with that story. And I think my background is very similar because I got a degree in communications, then I moved here. I did journalism for a while and now I'm writing for social media. So it's pretty much the same thing.
Yes.
But I got sick and tired of journalism very early. Much earlier than you. So what about you, Leo?
So I moved to the UK in 2018 for university to study illustration at University of Arts London. And right after graduating, I got my first job here at OutoftheBit. And yeah, I mean, I personally really love the UK, especially London specifically, because of the diversity in cultures. I'm actually half Chinese as well.
Right.
And back in Rome, I struggled to find people or groups with similar ethnicity and interests. Whereas in London, it's just so diverse that I immediately made friends everywhere that are Chinese and Italian and German.
So multicultural here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Right. Well, but now on to OutoftheBit, actually. What's the story behind your studio? Like, how did it come to be? How did you guys come to work together?
Well,
apart from riding the wave of the App Store and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can continue on that. So initially, I think it's good to... I see people having a specific idea and then becoming obsessed and work on a game for 5 years. This is probably not good advice. It's good to do something quicker and put it out there, get feedback, gain experience. So that's what I did for the first few years with the App Store. I tried many things quickly, and one of the things I did was to have like classic Italian games, like card games and board games, because again I could actually put something in the App Store and localize it in Italian and English as well.
Also have a finished project that you could go to people and say, oh yeah, I've done this thing.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And that was good to learn Objective-C at the time, to learn to program on the iPhone. It was a new platform with new possibilities, and every updates brought new possibilities. So it was good to do those smaller games just to gain experience and knowledge of the market end to end, what you could do, what you couldn't do. And then I did the same for Android. So you can say that the infancy for OutoftheBit, the first few years, were about trying stuff out and building up the experience that you need to tackle bigger projects. So again, it's not good to run before you can walk. It's actually good to take one step at a time. It's a common mistake you will see over and over in the industry. And I've seen it with friends of mine, and they didn't want to do the same. So, we basically did bigger and bigger projects slowly. And that also allowed us to self-fund ourselves. Because if you work on a big project for 5 years, you need a lot of money. Just even if it's one person to live, have kids, just a house, rent and bills and stuff. So by having many small projects, we had some steady income, and that allowed us to tackle bigger projects. Of course, that took some time. In fact, we started the company in 2008, before we could do some more original games, it took about, 6-7 years. But that was fine because the market was changing very, very quickly, and we got to experience, the iPhone, the iPad, Android, with many different phones, and so it was good to actually take our time to build the foundations, right?
I remember there was a time when people thought that console games were dead and everybody was going to switch to mobile. This is not a hit at Disney, but it kind of is, because they killed their Disney Interactive division thinking that console games were dead, or, mobile gaming was the future, but actually kind of evened itself out over time. So it was changing very quickly, as you say.
With PC gaming as well, it looked like PC gaming was something from the past, but now kids actually, they got iPads and they build gaming PCs as well, which is great. Yeah. So to answer your question, as we grew the company, right? So once I found the formula that I could reproduce, I created an engine to create board games, right? At that point, I wanted to expand the company and hire some more people to help with programming and marketing as well, and that's where Rosalia came into joining the company as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I remember one of the first projects I had was to find the cards for the card games.
Great.
And I remember contacting a big company in Italy. They provided us the actual physical cards, decks, all the regional decks that we started to implement in the games. And then it was a big success, all the Briscola and all these kind of games.
All those very classic Italian games, which I know and the listeners will know anything about, but they're very fun.
And people loved it. And I remember one of the biggest thing was replying to people asking all sorts of questions, players with all sorts of issues. So customer support, it was proper customer support.
Yeah, of course, at the beginning, that's what happens, Yes. And how did you meet the OutoftheBit bunch, Leo?
Well, right before graduating, I prepared my portfolio and just started sending out applications. And then Ali happened to find my CV and portfolio interesting, and he gave me a 1-month internship.
Okay.
And after that, he decided to keep me here. And it's been 2 years now that I've been working here.
Great,
It's just been a blast.
Amazing, yeah. And that's, as you guys were saying, there are a lot of opportunities like that in London. Like you can, in the UK or even outside of Italy in general, unfortunately, and it pains me to say it, that just people willing to offer you internships just to see what you're made of, and then see if you can work together, and then those usually end up being the best experiences ever. So moving on to Full Void now, and your recent game. So it has a beautiful retro feel, and I had to write this question because you can see it's a bit chunky. I definitely recognize a few influences there. Off the top of your head, list every source of inspiration that made it into the game, both as an art style and as a gameplay.
Okay, I start with my actual life.
All right, yeah.
what I went through during the pandemic as well. There was a big inspiration. I felt like I wanted to work on this project as a personal level. And in terms of games, of course, it is a cinematic puzzle platformer, okay? So we got to start with the Prince of Persia. Classic, amazing piece of work. Still great, And then obviously Another World on the Amiga. We can say Flashback as well.
Flashback,
on the Amiga. Okay. Delphine Software as well. And then AB Odyssey from PlayStation as well. I played that a lot with my brother. It was really, really good fun. But also adventure games. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of LucasArts games. Monkey Island, all Indiana Jones all the time, Day the Tentacle. So you can see that in Full Void on the the composition of the screens. They're not just like any game. Each screen is hand-drawn. It's like a painting with sometimes quite often with perspective. So again, just to give you a bit of background, Full Void is a cinematic puzzle platformer set in a dystopian future. So there is the main character is a young kid. He's alone. He has to obviously solve some mystery. There's something wrong with the world. I don't want to spoil the game, but something's gone wrong, and it's up to the player to figure that out and solve the problems. But in terms of inspiration, yes, all the classic of cinematic puzzle platformers.
Okay, yeah. And I did, for the listeners, for more context, I saw Full Void at WASD earlier this month in London, which is a big indie-focused event here in London. And I could see a lot of these influences when I saw it on screen. One thing that jumped at me was the little transitions when you actually maybe die or fail something, and it reminded me of Heart of Darkness, for example. When you fail something there and you have that little cinematic, just for a second or for a few seconds, a cinematic that shows you how badly you failed. And I think it's so fascinating. And all the games that you mentioned, Day of the Tentacle, and I assume there's a lot of other LucasArts games as well, including, as you said, Monkey Island. So all these influences coming together, it really does come through. So I think it's pretty cool. But I think this would be an interesting question for you too, Leo, because like in terms of art style, what are your major influences when you work on the game?
Right. So funny enough, Ali was the major influence.
Great. Yeah. Very good.
He doesn't actually do art himself, but he had this really clear vision of what exactly he wanted the game to look like, and it took us like several months at the start of the project to just really kind of find this visual style. And it was later on again even reworked when Miles, the other artist that works here, joined the company and added his own kind of skills and ideas to it. But overall, yeah, we just really wanted this kind of like dark vibe with the only source of like guidance being these small light sources and reflections on the floor. But that all came just from like Ali's initial idea and just me iterating and coming up with different ways to show it, and him going like, I like this part, I don't like this part.
This part is shit.
And then, yeah, just
not quite like that.
Yeah, not quite like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much like that, and yeah, we just kept iterating for a long time until we got this style down, and it's still evolving as we keep progressing. And well, now we kind of have this pretty much final style settled, and we're going through different parts of the game back again and just updating things that are outdated now. But yeah, so that was the kind of origin of the art style.
Yeah, I like the point you made it. It's still changing. I mean, it's the beauty of any creative thing. It's an iterative process, and at some point you nail it, but you have to get there. It's like it's a journey. So, and what is your biggest hope for Full Void?
Okay, Rosalia, wanna take this one?
Maybe you have a more clear vision of what you see.
I think he's asking you because he doesn't have a clue.
Like, I don't know, I just came up with it.
Well,
just going with it.
For sure, we're going to be out on all platforms, and this is not a hope. This is something that we will do.
Okay.
We are trying to grow our Wishlist base because that's the best thing we could do to have a good launch. What we really want is to have the game exactly as we want it. So as the guy can tell you as well, we're not rushing, and we will have the game as polished and as finished as we want it. When it's going to be ready, we're going to be out. And yes, of course, I think we will start with Steam, but we're going to go everywhere. So everyone will play it. The favorite consoles and platforms.
Basically, it goes out when it's ready, which is a great thing. Yeah. But yeah, well, I'm curious about another thing, which is a bit deeper, I suppose, for you guys. Why are you working in games? Like, what drives you forward? Yeah. What is your motivation? Your key?
I mean, for me, it was. It started just with being inspired by the worlds that games create and the interactability of it. Kind of just being able to create, I think this is the most the most tangible form of being connected to this other world that you're creating, your own fantasy kind of, rather than books, movies, or comics, because it has, again, that interactable feature of being able to control the player and having your own choices. And I think that's why I find games to be the most interesting medium to express yourself creatively.
Yeah, you can put together game and story and have like a beautiful experience that the player will remember for times to come. Anyone else want to chip in?
Yeah, same. For me, as a programmer, as a background and a computer engineer, problem solver, I could have worked in banking and other fields, and there is nothing wrong with that.
You could have made a lot more money too.
I had really good offers in the past. It made me think. But the reason I like to work on games is because it's really challenging in terms from the programming point of view, and you create something nice. I really like the connection, like Leo mentioned, the fact that it's interactive, it connects graphic, sounds, music, all of it together. It's like a living comic book for me. And that's my vision for the company, for Full Void and the next few games we're planning. So I want to give people interactive stories, hand-drawn interactive stories that they can play. The game's it's not going to be 300 hours. It's going something you play, you finish, and it will leave you with something. Like when you watch a film, as opposed to a series that never ends. Same when you read a comic, maybe that is short and lovely, as opposed to a comic that never ends and there is a new issue every month. So what we want to provide people is short stories, narrative-driven stories, interactive stories, where the graph is all hand-drawn, the engine is custom, the sounds are custom, everything is done by people, for people. They play the game, there is a message in the game, there is a message in Full Void, there is one bit of text at the end of the game. They will make the game make sense when you read it. I will not spoil it, of course.
Of course, yeah.
the whole game will make sense when you read it. And then if you play it through again, it will make even more sense. And that's what we want to give people. We want to give people feelings. Same reason why people make music or films or art in general. So for me, this is the approach of the company. A Full Void is like something you play, and then you're left with something nice. And then it's finished. You can play it again, same as Inside or Limbo, right?
Oh, Inside.
Another world. It's the same. And then, if you want more, maybe there will be another game from us, other people that want to join in. So that's the vision behind the company in Full Void.
Great. Yeah. Well, it's great, and as a lot of other people on this podcast have said, pretty much a similar thing. Like game development puts together everything that makes creative art, like storytelling, gameplay, pixel art, or just art styles in general. So it all comes together into a game, and that's why game development can really bring a lot of different people together, and that's something really, really interesting. So actually, something curious there. You mentioned that you're already planning some games after Full Void. Anything you can already spoil?
Nothing to define. We got some ideas, but nothing to define. We are 100% focused on finishing Full Void at the moment. Yeah. I do have this vision, of course, in my head, because like every artist, when you finish something, you really think about the next thing. What's the next? What's the next thing? I do consider myself an artist, even though I cannot draw to save my life. Okay, but in terms of I consider programming an art, and also creating projects like this, working with people, together with people as creative as Leo, Rosalia, Miles, Raphael, the entire team, and more people joining, as I mentioned. Robin, she did the music. She's not part of the company itself. She's just on contract, but she's done the music for Full Void. She's been amazing, Robin. So it's been great working with her as well. And just meeting people as well, like you, going to events like WASD. I'm just so happy that the industry is opening up again, and you can meet people and form connections. And nowadays many people work from home, which is fine. It's great that there is the option to do so. We've done a bit of the opposite. Our office is a bit of a house.
From what I can see,
we like
for the listeners back home. I mean, there's it's literally an apartment converted into an office. There's a little kitchen. That's where we are. There's like a TV too. It's like a living room, and there's an interesting Mortal Kombat arcade machine just behind me, which is really amazing. But yeah, it's like a retro cove, which is incredible. And there's a Masters of Doom copy back there in the office, which is also cool. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And again, I'm a big fan of working in person with someone and just bouncing ideas off the wall and iterating on the project. Has been a real blast to work together. And one of the things we do again in Full Void is that the fact that it's all hand-drawn and pixel art, it makes it going from idea to implementation in the game really quick. as opposed, let's say you got a AAA game with the massive engine with the photorealism, then you got an idea. Yeah, you need someone to model the assets for you, the texturing, the rigging,
animation.
You need quite a few people, and it means before you go from idea to actually implementation, can take a few days.
Yeah, and that idea can also change in the meantime because you can.
Yesterday with Leo, we had some idea for Full Void. We're putting Easter eggs at this point. The game is pretty much finished. We're just polishing and putting Easter eggs and extra sounds. And it's been really a good fun to put Easter eggs. And Leo had some idea, and we just implemented it yesterday.
Yeah, I drew it, and then we put it into the game immediately.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So well, you have a nice system that works, which sounds really amazing. Well, actually, now a question for you, Rosalia, specifically, like working in social media for Out of the Bit and interacting with the community. What have you noticed about the indie game community that like maybe you would like to change, or something that you think isn't working so well? Is there anything that you've noticed while working in games as a marketing or PR or social media person?
So first of all, I have to say I'm very new to social media.
Yeah, that's fine.
As a user especially. But it's been great fun. And all the indie community is very tight. I mean, on a positive note, like everyone wants to help each other.
Yeah.
And you see in terms of content creators or even other companies, developers, they always lend a hand, and that is amazing. That is actually great. The thing is, you find very few actual customers out there.
Yeah.
So it's like the community will be around you and you can count on it. But it's more like raising awareness than actually selling the game.
That's
you
an interesting
will have
point.
to go through some other route, more marketing than
and make paid and
media.
all that.
I guess. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting point that I read in one of Jason Schreier's book. Jason Schreier being the reporter from Bloomberg. He said that a lot of people that move from AAA into indie notice one thing. In AAA, you have this big marketing budget where you just spend a lot of money on a game and then everybody knows about your game at once and you build hype towards it. You can also do it in indie games. But what happens in indie games is something different because you don't have that massive marketing budget and network that a publisher has. You launch the game and then you build awareness so that people get to know your game over time. So your sales are actually pretty good if you see them over time. You just want that initial bump to get as many people as possible. But then over time, people will find out about their game. They just need more time, which I think is an interesting concept. So whereas a AAA launches and then plunges pretty quickly because interest just wanes away, an indie game builds interest over time. Like a Stardew Valley still collects players today, and because it's word of mouth and community and all of that. So I think that's a really interesting point there. And I do think that Full Void has a lot of potential, so you'll probably be able to experience something similar. So now we're about to wrap up now. So a bit more of a fun question for you guys. If you had unlimited budget and time, what game would you create?
That's a tricky one. Maybe Rosalia starts. Leo, we can all try to answer it.
Ooh.
So I'm sure we'll have different point of view.
I think we were talking about like movement capture kind of fighting game. I don't know. Something real fun. You know? Like, I don't know, Street Fighter.
Yeah, it's like a motion capture Street Fighter and all that. Okay, yeah.
That's a good question. Well, I would go with personal bias. I like designing characters, and I like animating the characters themselves. So probably also something like fighting game related, I would say. Okay. Or if we want, if we really want to increase the scope, maybe personally something like an RPG, an MMORPG, maybe even.
A lot of people say MMORPG when they think unlimited budget because it's like that's
the biggest project you can go for.
With the little arcade machine there with Mortal Kombat, I think you attracted the right people because they're both into fighting games. So I don't know why you're doing Full Void.
Exactly.
So what about you, Ali?
Yeah, for me, really, what I do, you've seen the massive white building next to our office, right?
Uh-huh.
Unlimited budget, I get that building.
Oh, right.
Okay? I'll fill the building with lots of artists, animators, everything hand-drawn, right? Animators, like, comic book artists, sound designer, music designer, and I'll create kind of a Disney studio for interactive games.
Right.
That would be my vision. Hopefully, that's where we're aiming at right now. It's going to take time, but that's my vision.
Yeah, but you're going to get that building, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's definitely your goal. You start with the building, yeah.
To be fair, there is a connection. I think that's a building when they did Tomb Raider back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wow.
They're no longer there. They used to be in Wimbledon.
Oh, right. So, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, a lot of people when I ask this question, there are a lot of different answers. Yeah. MMO is one of the most popular, but some people just say I would just be doing the same thing I'm doing now, just bigger, because that really shows when people are on the right track, and so I think it shows with this group as well. So I think it's time for some parting words, and we can wrap up this podcast for real. Where can other people find you, and if they do, how can they support you? I suppose wishlisting is
that's
one of the things.
That's the keyword. Wishlist Full Void on Steam. We are on Twitter. It's at OutoftheBit. We are on Instagram. We are even on TikTok. We are on Mastodon. So
Mastodon as well. Okay.
Oh yes, early days. So please follow us. And Full Void has a demo out. So if you go on Steam, you will be able to download the game. It's for Mac and Linux as well. Play it, and if you like it, wishlist it. We're going to have a launch discount, so you will be notified when it's out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So it's time to wrap this up. Thank you so much to the three of you for taking the time to take part in this podcast. It's been a lovely little chat. Loved speaking to you. And
thank you. Same for us. We can do this again another time if you want. But
let's keep in touch.
Is out, so we start the next game.
Yeah.
That way you have a chance to talk to Miles as well.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. Let's definitely keep in touch. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on the first live recorded episode of the Indie Diarist podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to the Out of the Bit bunch for being such amazing guests for this very special occasion. Also, congratulations to Out of the Bit for launching Full Void this week, or at least the week that this episode goes live. Please go to Steam and support these guys because, as you've heard, they are a big, passionate bunch and they love what they do so very much. So, a couple more things from me as we wrap up this episode. Please subscribe to the show. You can follow on Spotify or find the Indie Diarist on all the most popular podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. You can also follow the show on Twitter, which is where I'm most active, at the Indie Diarist, and on Blue Sky now as well. I know, one of the early adopters. Well, by the time this episode goes live, it will probably be a while since Blue Sky became so popular. But anyway, so one more thing. There is now a Discord server for the show. You can find a link at theindiediarist.com, which is the landing page that I made just recently. And more ways to support the show are just in the works. They will come in the future. Lastly, if you are an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch. Because as you've seen, I love having fun speaking to developers. And I would very much love to tell your story to my listeners. So, until next time, travelers, I'll speak to you in the next episode of the Indie Diarist podcast.